I'm the youngest of 3 kids. First came my 2 brothers, and then me. And when we were kids, my parents set out some very clear expectations for all 3 of us. We were to work hard in school, we were definitely to attend university, we were to get 1, ideally 2, if not maybe 3 degrees, and then go out and build strong and successful careers. So I was more than a little surprised when at the age of 32, I had 10 years of working under my belt, 2 university degrees, and I was pregnant with my first child, and my parents turned to me and said, "When are you going to stop working to take care of your family?" Stop working. Had they asked my brothers that question when they started their families? No. This was the first time in my life, lucky for me, that I was forced to confront the fact that I was different from my brothers. That in fact, the expectations that had been set for them were different than the ones that had been set for me. So what I took away from that was spend 32 years building up your ambition and your drive, work really hard at school, go out and launch that career, and then shut it all down when you have a kid. Why? Well, quite simply because I'm a girl, which feels kind of funny, right? In my career prior to joining Catalyst, and by the way, I didn't stop working, I was a partner with the global executive search firm Spencer Stuart. Ironically, I was a headhunter, just like my dad. And for 21 years, I spent my time advising the leaders of some of the largest companies in North America on their talent needs, which had me doing countless searches for senior executives and board directors. And interestingly, in the last 10 years of that time, gender diversity became an important, if not central part of every search brief that I worked on, which I thought was pretty encouraging. In fact, I thought it was a real step forward in the path to gender equality in the workplace. However, in the haze of that very positive momentum, there were 2 refrains that I heard over and over again. And they went something like this. My client would say, "Tanya, we really want a woman for this role, but we can't afford to compromise on quality." Or, "Tanya, we really want a woman, but she's got to fit with our culture. So we want a woman, but we can't mess with our quality, and she can't mess with our culture." Let's take a step back. So women represent just over 50% of the population. And in Canada, we are 47% of the workforce, and we earn 60% of all university degrees. We also control or influence over 70% of all purchase decisions. In fact, women have now been called officially the fastest growing economic force in the world. But companies are still slow to promote women to senior roles. In fact, only 5% of CEOs in North America are women. And in the US, there are more CEOs named John than there are female CEOs put together. I should have named my son John, I didn't. And it's not true just in the topmost job. It's also true if you look at the broader executive ranks. So in that rank, women have only made a 1 percentage point gain in the last decade in terms of representation. So I think it's fair to say that we're stuck. And what I want to talk to you about today is the fact that this should concern each and every one of us. Because gender inequality is far from being a woman's problem. It is society's problem. So let's talk about that a little bit. As many of you in this room would know, Canada's battling a talent crisis. We have a shrinking talent base owing to an aging population and a slowdown in population growth. In fact, this year, for the first time, Canada reported that we had more than people over the age of 65 than under the age of 15. At the same time, we face intensifying competition from an increasingly well-educated world. In fact, by 2030, it's expected that the world will have some 300 million post-secondary graduates, and a full 50% of those will come from India and China. A mere 1%, will come from Canada. So while all that is going on over here, Canada is also lagging other countries in terms of both innovation and productivity. The World Economic Forum's Global Competitive Index ranks Canada as 22nd in terms of, I can't do 22nd with my fingers, 22nd in terms of innovation, and a dismal 27th in private sector research and development. So I think an obvious question is, how are we going to secure the future for this country? And where are we going to find the highly skilled, highly educated talent to meet the future demands of Canadian companies? Well, this is something that policymakers have been grappling with for many years. And Canada has obviously turned to immigration to help address that void. In fact, today, some 2/3 of our population growth comes from the arrival of new Canadians. But immigration alone is not sufficient to solve our talent crisis. Because today, we retire about 250,000 Canadians a year. Broadly, the same number of new Canadians that we bring into the country. But in just a few years, our retiree count will go up to 400,000. So immigration alone is not going to fix this problem. Enter women. Recall earlier when I said that women represent 47% of the Canadian workforce and earn 60% of university degrees. This is a group of people that represents an incredible treasure trove of talent that is currently underutilized and undervalued in the workplace, to the detriment of both our society and our economy. The roots of gender inequality run deep, and they are outdated and often hidden or unconscious. And we need to challenge that, because right now, I think you could say we're flying with only one wing, and if we don't start using the other one, we're likely to fall. Now, many great thinkers and leaders of our time advocate for gender equality. They advocate because it's the right thing, it is the fair thing, and it's fundamentally a question of human rights. And as a woman, a mother, a daughter, an aunt, I agree passionately. As a business leader, I would also add that it's the smart thing. Now, many of you have probably read the research studies, including those at Catalyst, that have shown that diverse teams outperform homogeneous teams. Diverse teams drive better business results, they generate more creative and more innovative solutions, and they are more productive than homogeneous teams. So in my view, naturally, these heterogeneous teams should be composed of the two biggest talent groups, men and women. And companies who are not seeking to gain the benefits of these diverse perspectives and experiences are missing out on what diversity and inclusion can bring and their direct links to innovation and productivity, which means that those companies will inevitably cede ground to their competitors. We also know that talent votes with its feet, and talent will seek out the most agile, inclusive, dynamic, high-performance environments because it can. And let me give you an example, one that I saw play out over and over in my search career. A highly educated, driven, ambitious woman excels in her career until she gets to middle management. And once there, she bides her time. She's told that she's in the high potential file and that she's on a number of succession lists. And she becomes what we call a list warmer. She gets passed over once, maybe twice, and told that she's not quite ready for the next promotion. But she's never told exactly why she's not ready and what she needs to do to get ready. People make assumptions about her, like, we can't give her the international assignment because she's got a family. Or she may not be as committed to her career because she doesn't spend the same number of hours in the office as other people do. But no one actually ever asks her, and no one sponsors her. So over time, she starts to disengage. And then one day, she picks up and she moves to the competition, who's more agile and more inclusive, and they've figured out how to manage her more effectively. And she knocks it out of the park. Big loss for company A. So what's the lesson learned? Well, it's that companies who value talent cannot afford to manage their high potential women in a linear fashion. Because if they do, they risk losing them. So what's the answer? Well, some incredibly intelligent, passionate women have been asking that for a long time and have got us to where we are today, and we owe them a huge debt of gratitude. But I also think there's an ingredient that's missing. When 95% of companies are still led by men, then I believe that change can only happen when we engage as many of those men with power to acknowledge that gender inequality is something that needs to be solved by them as well as us. And we need to engage them as champions, as sponsors, and as change agents. And I do believe those men are out there, and they distinguish themselves through bold and intentional leadership. So on my board at Catalyst, I'm fortunate to have some of the most influential CEOs in the country that advise me on a day-to-day or call it month-to-month basis. These are men and women who are truly passionate about advancing gender equality in their workplaces. These people really get it. So recently, when I was asked, or maybe more aptly, I was challenged by the press about whether I was concerned about the optics of having a male board chair, I actually found the answer pretty easy, and the answer is no. Because if I, as a strong female leader, can engage a strong male leader to stand shoulder to shoulder with me and acknowledge publicly that gender inequality is as much his problem as it is mine, then that's a big win. And if he is prepared to stake his reputation on affecting positive change both in his company and in other companies in Canada, then that's a huge win. And if through his actions, he makes his workplace a better place and the workplaces of others a better place through women in leadership, then that's exactly the kind of bold and intentional leadership we need more of, because this changes the conversation and is a critical factor in changing the game. Gender inequality is not a women's issue. It is society's issue. Dr. Florence Savin, who was the first female professor at a medical school, once said, "If I didn't think the answer could be found, I wouldn't be looking for it." Well, I couldn't agree more. The answer to gender inequality has been found. We know what it is. We just now all need to step forward as leaders, women and men, and make it happen.